lecture is on regression, and I wanted to do a video example of how to create a regression line because there's a lot of concepts in that idea that are very important for this lecture. So what I will talk about in the lecture is that we have this equation which I'll call y hat. So this y with the upside down like arrow on top of it is called y hat. Then we have a, which is the intercept, plus b, which is the slope, times x. So y is our outcome measure and x is our predictor. And I'm not sure if you've seen this before, but this is the same equation of a line. So a regression line is essentially the same thing as that we've learned in the past in math, that you may have seen in the past, is the same equation for a line. So when I'm going through the lecture, you'll learn that looking at a scatter plot will look like, if you remember during the correlation lecture, we had a scatter plot, and then you can have a line that fits that data. So regression is trying to predict based on x what y will be, and they're doing that prediction based on the equation of a line. So I took this example from your book, and that is on page 500, where they talk about creating a regression line, for drawing the regression line, and this will help you with the concept of regression. So with a regression line, I went through the basic equation in the book, and this is how I will most likely test, is I will give you this equation, right? The actual equation for a relationship. So the example in the book talks about how SAT scores predict GPA in college. So when you take the SAT, and that's why they use the SAT as a predictor measure to see which college that you are predicted to potentially do better in. So the equation for that is y hat equals 0.3, again the intercept, plus 0.004, which is the slope, times x. And when you write that out in terms of what the predictor is and the outcome measure are, is you would write, so remember, I'm trying to predict GPA, and I will just write, so this is very clear, GPA in college. So we're trying to figure out our outcome measure of y hat, right? So GPA in college equals, so this is the intercept, it starts at 0.3, plus the slope is 0.004 times your the individual's SAT score. Okay, and so this is based on data that was previously collected. So once you collect that data, you create what's called a regression line. And we'll talk about how to figure out what the regression line is, right? So and then I drew out a graph already so again, the x variable is always the predictor variable. So as I mentioned during correlation, you want a graph on the x, or the horizontal axis, what you think is what is predicting. And in regression, it's extremely important to know what the predictor variable is versus the outcome measure, right? So our predictor variable is SAT scores, and it's usually the thing that's measured first in time. There's a temporal measurement, right? When you start creating studies, there's going to be a bunch of different ways. For example, if you collect a variable at the same time as another, which one is the predictor? It's what you determine is a predictor. And in this example, and all the examples I'll give in this class, it will be obvious what the predictor is, right? So SAT scores come before college GPA, okay? And so this is the x-axis. So this is, I'll just write x, and this is y, right? This is our outcome, this is our predictor. So I drew this out. So the way to figure this out is to plug in, and your book gives these examples, to plug in a low SAT score and then a high SAT score. So, and I'm plugging into X to figure out what Y would be. So I'm just going to wipe this out. So I'm going to start off with X equal to 200 as a low SAT score. So I have Y equals, I'm just rewriting the equation, plus 0.004 times my SAT score, which is 200. So Y hat, or our outcome measure, will then be, I need to use my calculator. Let's see. So I get 1.1. Okay. So then we would go to our graph and go to the x-axis to 200 right here, right? And then 1.1, which is about there. And we would plot that first. So this is 0.1. And then we have to think of doing a high SAT score to get a good line, right? So let's just try 700. So I'm gonna do it over here because I ran out of room. So let's say X is 700. So now we have to do Y hat equals 0.3 plus 0.004. I'm just rewriting the same equation right here, right? Times, and I'm just filling in the SAT score, which is X, times 700, and I get Y hat equal to 3.1. Okay. So now I'll go over here to 700 and go up to, so 3.1 is about here. So I'll go over here, about, and now this, well, is our equation line. And if you notice, right, the intercept, so the intercept of the line is where it hits the y-axis, where x equals 0. So our intercept, which is a, right, is right here. So that's how I check it. And in following slides I'll talk about during lecture, there are the types of questions I'll ask. I won't ask you to draw this out. I'll ask you to do this not on the exam, but for an exam, I would give you this equation and ask you for a value of x of some number, what is the predicted value, right? So you have to go through, I will always give you this equation or something like this, and you'll have to plug in x to figure out what y is.